You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
Episode 70, The Paradox.
Welcome to The Paradox with your attending, Dr. Eric Larson. He is a practicing anesthesiologist and clinical assistant professor at Michigan State University College of Human Medicine. Listen in as he takes you behind the scenes of what practicing medicine in today's ever-changing world is like with another doctor. The Paradox is a fun and accidentally informative show for physicians, patients, or anyone who has ever found themselves in a waiting room.
Welcome to The Paradox. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Larson. Thank you for joining me as we explore the U.S. medical system in a fun and informative format through expert analysis. And today's expert is a repeat guest, Dr. Nitin Gupta, a pediatrician at Rivertowns Pediatrics in New York. For longtime listeners, we last visited with Dr. Gupta as he just launched a direct primary care pediatrics practice. His experience over the last year with the struggles, I think, tells us a lot about the challenges and opportunities DPC docs face when launching on their own. Most insightful is how Dr. Gupta stopped spending so much energy explaining what DPC is and instead went with the flow and started calling himself concierge, which was more familiar with his patient population. And it's made all the difference. His commitment to building relationships with patients and families, cash payments, and value didn't change, but the marketing of his practice did. And it's a very interesting discussion on selling yourself and branding, critical to any business owner's success. Dr. Gupta's practice, the previous episode, other links can all be found at theparadox.com/070. That's PRADOCS.com on the show notes page. Please stop over at your favorite podcast player or iTunes and leave a rating and write a note about the show. Thank you again so much for sharing these episodes with friends and colleagues. If you want to follow the show on social media, and who wouldn't, you can find me at The Paradox Show on Twitter or search The Paradox on Facebook. But without further ado, Dr. Nitin Gupta on marketing your DPC practice and now well-established Paradox Bump. Enjoy. Well, welcome. I'm here revisiting with my friend Nitin Gupta, a pediatrician in a, we'll call it a DPC practice for now in New York. Nitin, thank you so much for coming back to the show.
Oh, thanks for inviting me back.
Well, it's very fortuitous. You know, it's funny. You had sort of contacted me, and now we're in episode 70. And last time it was episode 31, so almost a year ago, and probably because I don't record every week especially. So it has been about a year, and when we last visited, you had really just started your practice, and you got the Paradox Bump right afterwards. I noticed that. You made it to CBS Evening News. You had a lot of, right, you made the national news interview, and your practice has really kind of taken off since you were on the Paradox. So, I mean, I take a little bit of that credit.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly. But why don't you, let's start with the CBS Evening News, because I think that was the most interesting development. So for those who don't recall, in episode 31, we discussed you had a direct primary care pediatrics practice where you had just launched. And since then, you had this thing happened with this CBS News. So kind of talk sort of how that happened.
Did you actually watch that?
So I did see it because, you posted all over the place, but it's good publicity, right? I mean, it was a pretty cool thing that you're doing, and that's why it was highlighted.
Yeah. Well, so what happened was this was during the government shutdown last year, and I was just getting kind of frustrated with everything that was going on. And my dad was a government employee. So I just got frustrated one day, and I just put out a meme that said, I'm just going to see during this government shutdown, this furlough, I'm going to see government employees for free. That's it. And then I posted that like around maybe 5 p.m. And then I wake up this morning, there's 12,000 views on that meme. Apparently it went viral. And I was like, I didn't even know. I was like, I went viral? What? I had a big dentist. I had to go to my dentist the next morning. 12,000 views. I said, how the heck did this happen? So maybe I got a lot of followers from the podcast, the Paradox.
I think that's probably it. I think it was all the Paradox Bump. It's classic. It happens all the time with me.
Yeah. So anyways, I didn't think anything of it. Anyways, I'm there in my dentist's chair, getting my teeth cleaned, and I get this call from his friend who I just kind of knew her on Facebook.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she was very prominent in the local Facebook groups. So seeing her, we're just Facebook friends. I see a Facebook call from her. I didn't even know you could do that. I answer the phone. I was like, hello. And she's like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, getting my teeth cleaned. She's like, you're going to get a call from CBS News. I was like, why? She's like, because you're trending. I was like, on what? She's like, your meme. It's making national news. I said, oh, okay. Why am I going to get a call? I still had no idea. I was like very shocked. And so I actually got a bunch of other DPC docs to kind of do a little pledge that they would do the same thing. That this would be our moment. This is what's going to separate us from everybody else. We're going to see those affected by the government shutdown. We're going to see for free. And that's it. And my dentist, while I was sitting there on the dentist chair, he said, you did that? I said, yeah. So he did the same thing. So he posted the same meme. So he was going to do it. It kind of spiraled. I was nervous as hell because I still wasn't quite sure why I was there. Because part of it also was like, I was still struggling with the fact that this was becoming a thing, that kind of as a society, we fell so low that I think like a doctor saying he's going to see patients for free, like makes the news. It was kind of a hard thing for me. And I was so not prepared. I just didn't.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. And what's neat about it, I think, on one level, you're correct in that it is weird that an act of charity, and whatever the cause might be, and government workers you don't have, that get furloughed for a little while, or if there had been a hurricane or something like that, I think. But the fact that you had the ability to do this sort of thing, people just don't see that, and it's real shame. I mean, I think the only time a lot of physicians have the opportunity to do this sort of charity work is if they go to a clinic, like a free clinic. They can't do it within the confines of wherever they're working, generally speaking now. And so that's what makes it sort of unique, what you're able to do as a DPC doc, and certainly a dentist can do it because they usually are all in solo practice, but they're not part of large health systems. Because within your own institutions, you don't have the flexibility and the ability, even capacity to do this sort of thing because there's all this, the red tape, whatever the red tape might be.
Actually, when I put out that meme, I also leaned on a bunch of the local mom and pop pharmacies to kind of honor that kind of the thought and maybe sell the prescriptions at cost. And so I recruited a number of them, the dentists, the independent. It started to grow. But yeah, there's no way I could get a big box pharmacy to do that because of the red tape.
Yeah,
it's like, well, we're gonna have to bring this up with management and because I did ask one of the big box in town, and they couldn't do it. And so this was our moment for independent physicians, independent practitioners, dentists, pharmacists, things like that.
It's a reflection of this. It's a reflection of small businesses, right? I mean, yeah. Because essentially, the small business, you can be nimble, you can be, you can adapt quickly. You don't have to send things to corporate headquarters, it's the disadvantage. You don't have that. You don't have the big might of whatever the corporation is from their marketing, all that sort of thing. But the other thing is you can just you can do things that they can't do so quickly that that moment was over before they probably hadn't even a chance to have many meetings about it.
I know. I know. But what was kind of funny? It was like somebody I saw on Twitter. I only had Twitter. I set up a Twitter account for like a week because I just still couldn't figure it out, the whole Twitter thingy. So, but I saw like afterwards, somebody's like, "Look, this helped end the shutdown." I was like, "No, it didn't." It's just thanks, but I'm still trying to process this whole thing.
Yeah. And that's great. And and the one thing I love about the direct primary care and it's a reflection. A lot of these movements, you feel like they're sort of ideologically one's on the left or the right, or there's an ideology behind it. Mm-hmm. And what I love about the DPC thing is it seems to it doesn't matter where you are politically. I mean, I think people see there's a value, there's a relationship you establish with a patient, it doesn't really matter what you think about the president or Congress or anything like that, or, what the healthcare. You just like, I'm just taking care of this person, and I've got the ability to do this.
That's
it. And it doesn't matter what my politics are, because that's what I think makes it so much more robust than a movement that would just be ideologically either on the right or the left, right? Because then as the political winds change, now it loses its steam. But DPC has the resiliency because it provides that value both to the physician in sort of practicing the way they want to practice, and to the patient, obviously, for delivering services at a high quality service at a lower cost than you can get in the general, the regular healthcare system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Of course, everybody's got a political side. Everybody in DPC, and there's always people talking about it. They bring up politics, but the one thing we all agree is that really politics, really isn't really going to affect our practices as much. We're working for our communities, working for our patients. And whether we're left-leaning or right-leaning, it doesn't matter. We get to be doctors for our communities.
Yeah, it's like, it's a Hippocratic oath, right? You're living it out, and that's it's a beautiful thing. I think. I think that's why we're in the business.
Yeah.
But to get into a different topic now, I think what's interesting is when we're here talking about direct primary care, and there's usually a distinction between the term concierge and direct primary care, and concierge is. Generally, it seems to be direct primary care docs are very careful in saying concierge is the additional fee you pay to a service that's similar to direct primary care, where you have exclusive access to a physician and 24/7, coverage and emails, all that sort of thing. But it's usually on top of an insurance payment program. It's not a separate thing. It's not outside the third party system, so to speak. It's sort of like, you just pay extra to have this sort of extra special service. But you are maintain what would be considered direct primary care, but you're not calling it that. So why don't you go into sort of why you've sort of morphed into what you're doing now?
So, anytime you're starting a kind of a new concept or a new industry, which is something I kind of view myself as doing, is a lot of it comes down to marketing. And here in New York, the concierge doctors have been around for much, much longer time. And it's almost become synonymous with doctors who don't take insurance. So that's why I kind of just had to it was hard. I found myself really trying to explain DPC more than anything when I first opened up. I kind of gave in. I was like, you know what? I'm just a concierge doctor. And then people were like, oh, oh, you're in New York. Meanwhile, I didn't change anything. It was a marketing strategy. And we had a TV show called Royal Pains. And that's what a lot of people remember about this doc who kind of broke free of the system and wasn't taking insurance. That's what a lot of people remember. So I kind of rolled with it. I kept getting it a lot, like, oh, you're like a concierge doctor. And I was like, no, but I'm DPC. And they're like, what's that? And then the whole conversation shifted into DPC and into this movement. It's a great movement and all that, but then it wasn't really helping me out because I still needed to get patients.
Sure.
So, and then in pediatrics, I think DPC in a lot of states that haven't really expanded Medicaid, DPC kind of can almost be like a replacement for an insurance, even though it's not. But it's something that is a big option. Now in pediatrics, we have the Children's Health Insurance Program. So kind of using the same kind of marketing tactics that other DPC practices use doesn't quite apply because most kids in New York, at least, almost nearly all kids in New York have some form of insurance through either employer or through the Children's Health Insurance Program. I do have kids, a handful that don't have insurance, but in a state that expanded Medicaid, I can't use that same marketing. So I had to kind of change it around and say, I'm a concierge. It really stuck with people. It made a lot more sense for a lot of people hearing that word. But my pricing was really kind of the same.
Yeah, right.
Now my rates are still higher than most DPC practices, but it's also where I live, Westchester. So it's high. It's high compared to like those in the Midwest, but nearly pretty much every family as part of my practice feel like they don't pay enough. And that's a good feeling to have, because you know what happens is some of those families actually insist on paying me more.
That's a good problem to have.
Listen, I didn't ask for that. They're like, we're going to pay you more. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to argue too much.
Well, that's very interesting because there are regional differences both in. I think there's regional differences in obviously income and standard of living, and what's the expected. The cost of gasoline is way more in California than it is, say, in Oklahoma.
Oh yeah,
and that's so your prices overall are just different, and so there's definitely a value to be perceived, and I think this is like when people talk about marketing, the value to be perceived by customers. How much do you price things? If you price it too low, people think, well, it must be not very good. It must be terrible service, right? And so you want to price it at a point where people can afford it, but they think it's of some sort of value, right? There's always like the anchor price on menus that they say, the cheapest thing is like, the macaroni and cheese is like $13. And so that way you can price your steaks at $50 because people always say, well, it's at least 5 times better than a bowl of macaroni and cheese. And if you were price your macaroni and cheese is $5, people aren't going to spend more than $25 on your steak or something like that. I do think the language is interesting too, because language is always evolving. New words enter the vocabulary, definitions change, the way we use words, nouns become verbs, verbs can become nouns. Yeah. And like tonight for dinner I had some pop. You probably never had pop. You've had soda, right? I mean, there are differences just like that. And so it's not surprising that people would say that maybe in a region like yours, that concierge already had a definition that was well known to people. And so for you to adopt that language makes sense. Yeah. Whereas other places, no one really had concierge medicine. So to learn a new phrase, it doesn't make a difference, right? And so maybe DPC is just as reasonable, an option. And so anyway, it's very interesting how that works. And so it was for you, since you're a small business, you're just, one guy, you just recognized sort of where it was easy to make the sale and just sort of have people introduce them to what you're doing.
Right there. So let's talk about that CBS News interview.
Right.
You would think that would have exploded my practice. So here's the paradox of going on national TV. I followed the recipe book for DPC. I had all my rates up on my website, all the transparency there, all the information there. After that CBS News interview, I had a lot of hits on my website.
Sure.
And they went to the homepage, they went to the about page, they went and then finally got to the members page where my rates were. That's where everything was stopped cold right there. It just stopped. And so actually after that CBS News interview, I didn't get a single patient for about 2 months. I think that CBS News interview was probably about, I think it was like January, I think, or December. Yeah, I didn't get a patient for about 8-10 weeks. Talk about panic.
Yeah.
I said, what happened? I had everything. I said, I can't be more transparent. But what happened was that having my rates right there on my website, it works for a lot of other DPC practices. It just wasn't working for me because I think what happened was it took away the conversation. And it took away that phone call or that email that parent or that particular patient might have wanted to do. If they had too much information. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there during that time, actually, right after that interview, I brought in Dr. Lori Solomon of Innovix Medical. She actually opened the first DPC practice in Westchester, New York, in Scarsdale. Scarsdale, one of the richest cities in the country. Kind of like, wow, this would have made sense. Right there, Scarsdale. People want better personalized care. It's in a rich area. Hey, people are probably going to pay for that. And she charged $100 a month per patient. Again, it's all regional differences, right?
Yeah,
so that's kind of like nothing for people in that area. Her practice didn't do so well. It's kind of like, it was mind-boggling. Like, how is this not working? I actually met her off of, I found her on DPC Frontier, the mapper on dpcfrontier.com. And so right before I opened my practice, I went and got her blessing, and we kind of stayed in touch. I said, hey, let's see, maybe we can kind of purchase things together like flu shots and, economies of scale.
Sure.
We kind of kept in touch for we checked in with each other every month to see how each other were doing. And one month, I think it was like October, I said, "How you doing over there?" She's like, "I'm not doing that well." I said, "Oh." I hear about everybody's DPC practices just flourishing as soon as they open. They have people have already pre-signed their memberships or something like that before they even opened. And then I hear this one DPC practice in Westchester. She's 6 months in or 8 months in, and she's like, "I'm not doing very well."
A place you think you'd be very successful.
You would think. I think a couple months go by. We're chatting every month, and as my practice was kind of picking up, a lot of my parents were saying, "Hey, I wish this is great. I wish there was something like this for us." And so I kept referring them to her, but she was about 20 minutes away, which really isn't that far. But nobody wanted to go to her. I don't know. It's 20 minutes. But anyways, one day I just called her up and just, it was like our kind of monthly check-in. Like, "Hey, how you doing?" And she said, "I'm going to close this practice. I'm losing a lot of money. I can't do it." I said, "Oh, well, I got 2 more exam rooms open." And I do mostly house calls. So I'm only using one. Why don't you join me? I will get you more patients. And so then she joined. So she joined. And then also around that time, I got a child therapist who recently wrote a book called The Tantrum Survival Guide. She was on Good Morning America and things like that. I know she had a practice in Manhattan. I said, "Hey, how about a Dobbs Ferry practice?" So I was able to get her to join my office. So now there's 3 of us, and then the CBS News interview. And I was like, "This is going to set us. This is going to put us on the map." The crickets for like 2 months. I was like, "Oh boy." And that's where Dr. Solomon and I kind of had to sit down and we kind of retooled our whole thought. And we realized we got to go at this at a concierge angle. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be concierge. It's the same darn concept.
You're just rebranding.
It's just, we rebranded to concierge. It's the same mentality. It's the same philosophy. We changed it to concierge. That was it. When we switched it over to concierge, we rebranded ourselves concierge. It changed the whole narrative from what is DPC to, "Oh, you're concierge. Oh man, you must charge $3,000 a year," which a lot of concierge docs who are already in existence in New York, in Connecticut, they're charging about $3,000 a year, kind of a retainer, or even $2,000. But for us, we kept the same prices. So my sister-in-law, she's a marketing guru. She's a marketing person. And he said, you never want to compete on price because there's always somebody out there who's going to beat your price. And all of a sudden, Dr. Solomon and I became those 2 people who are going to beat everybody's prices. And then that started to change the whole narrative. So March hits, didn't get a single patient. People started getting their deductibles in the mail.
Right.
It's like, oh, that visit they just saw the pediatrician for or their internist for in January, deductibles reset January 1st. Now they started seeing our concept like, hey, it was almost like we just changed it as we're concierge. You deserve better. You deserve quality and accessibility. And that's what we changed. Because we weren't trying to be an we weren't trying to be an alternative to insurance. What we changed was the accessibility and the quality. You're getting more for your money with us. It just changed. We changed it saying, concierge, you're getting us 24/7. That was the change. And then now we're doing well.
That's fascinating because, that is the DPC sort of model that we show. We show we're a low cost alternative to getting care elsewhere. And you guys say, well, we are that, but that's not our sales pitch. Yeah. our pitch is that people expect to pay a lot to go to see the doctor. So we're going to provide care above and beyond what people are getting elsewhere. And then they find out that we're relatively inexpensive in comparison to what they're getting just for regular care.
Yeah.
And they're gonna recommend us to their friends and everyone, say, you wouldn't believe this place. You get this great care.
Every patient is a walking billboard.
Yeah, sure.
And so, and so I just, right before our meeting, this phone call, I just interviewed a family, and the mom, she just emailed me, and she said, this is unbelievable what you're providing. I said, I wish it wasn't. I wish we went back to those days. That's all I'm trying to do.
And I wonder at some point, you're providing the service, and if there are 50 other people entrance into your market, let's say, then you're going to have probably different strategies and different types of patient populations you're going to be capturing with, different techniques, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I imagine from a marketing standpoint, there'll be different ways. And what works where you are is entirely different than what's going to work in Dayton, Ohio.
Absolutely.
And that's what you've discovered, right?
Yeah, you have to know your market. That's the key. And I've talked to a few pediatricians who have opened their DPC practices, and they said, "Hey, yeah, I'm not doing so well." And I said, "Well, how are you marketing? Let me look at your Facebook page. Let's talk about this." And it's like, you know what? You're doing you're trying to talk about what you provide versus insurance. No, don't even bother with the insurance. You're trying to say that, hey, you don't need insurance to see me. No, don't even bother with that, because that's you've got people who are secure that they have insurance. What you're trying to say is, really, this is the quality I provide. And in some cases, if you have a high deductible, it's the kind of quality I provide without you even needing to use your insurance. And that's something, and I think that especially for pediatricians, where most kids have access to the Children's Health Insurance Program. Most kids have insurance in this country. That's the trick. We've got to really but we got to really emphasize the quality you're going to get from having you as the pediatrician. Call. That's also another difference. I guess my practice is a little different from other pediatric practices. Is, I guess, I don't really have the set hours.
Right. Uh-huh.
And so they can call me 24/7, and I do house calls. I guess that's another little separate thing. So I guess I hate to use the word hybrid, but because hybrid we always look at as a hybrid is a practice that uses that bills insurance as well as a monthly. But I think I guess I like to think I'm more of a hybrid in kind of the way I practice, I guess. Yeah,
right. It's sort of like you could say you had a hybrid practice where you're sometimes in the hospital and sometimes, running a patient, and sometimes you're in your clinic. And so it's, that would be could be seen as a hybrid. So instead of going to the hospital, you're just going to people's houses.
Yeah.
It's an alternative site for seeing patients, right? But that's a hybrid model that you're professing. So I guess there are two questions. One is, do you think that pediatrics, because it's sort of the things you mentioned, do you think it's unique to your area, or do you think that's sort of, if you're a DPC doc, that you should be looking as a value proposition, not by price, but with the services you offer and the care, that's what parents want and parents are willing to spend money on? I mean, if you look at it, parents spend tons of money on soccer teams and lacrosse and all this stuff. So for them,
I'm sorry, your kid's not going to be a professional athlete. It's
right.
Not gonna happen.
Exactly.
That's statistic, but they're spending the money on that.
Absolutely. Right. And you think they would be more than happy to drop $100 a month to get really high quality healthcare and have less worries about the kid, know there's someone they can rely on. I mean, do you think that's the model for, maybe it's unique to pediatrics? Maybe that's sort of just kind of an outlier compared to the other specialties.
I can't speak for every pediatric practice.
I mean, do you think it's unique to New York?
I don't think so. Because Amber Price over in Chicago and Andrea Wadley in Texas, it's something we all chat about. we talk about, we can't utilize we have to have a different kind of marketing strategy. And it really comes down to what we're providing you, not what DPC necessarily provides you. It's weird. We have to really say, this is who you're getting. It's us 24/7. It's that value-added product.
Sure. Yeah.
And parents, but we have to tell them, because, when we say, we have to really go out of our way and say, no, we're providing health care, as opposed to that big hospital group or that big insurance. No, that's managed. And you might be spending 2 hours waiting 2 hours to get 5 minutes with your pediatrician, or you can get an hour at least with us on your schedule. And so we have to kind of set, because most of if you say we're an alternative, you don't have to use your insurance, or you don't need insurance to see us. Well, people are going to be like, well, I have insurance. I mean, if all you're talking about is insurance, like, what's the point of you? Right. We have to say what we're really about. And travel, you could spend, I guess, on your local soccer league, you could spend like a couple $100, or you go on this travel soccer team and it's a couple $1,000.
Oh yeah. Right. I mean, the money is there. And like you said, you're providing medical care, not managed care.
I provide care. I provide health care. Insurance restricts your care. So.
Yeah. Well, and it almost makes you wonder too, at some level, maybe the DPCs, a lot of these docs are kind of going about the wrong way too. I mean, maybe the way you market yourself is really not on the price point.
No.
That's sort of how because in some ways you could say, what is it that draws people to an iPhone, for instance? Is it the fact that it costs $600? Or is it the fact that it's a flashlight, it's a compass, it's it holds your email, it has web browser, you can watch television on it? Is it all that stuff? And then you say, oh, by the way, it's $600 and, Androids, whatever. And that the price is not, the price is maybe where you've just closed the sale?
I don't know. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the cell phone kind of analogy, because actually on an iPhone, I'm going to go get a new iPhone later this week. And it's, again, you never compete on price.
Yeah.
I'm going to get an iPhone because that iPhone is basically my receptionist, and it's like I do all my work on it. I don't care what the price is going to be because I know it's a good quality phone. I'm pretty sure I can get a Samsung for cheaper, I believe. But that's the thing. You're never going to go based off of, you can't compete on price. And I think that's something the DPC practices who might need to retool their strategy. I think they need to really think that through. Maybe it's not trying to save people money. Maybe you need to tell them what you're going to offer them. Yeah.
The reason that I'm drawn to the DPC, so I am a cheapskate, so I'll admit that right up front. But I had a DPC doc. I had insurance and I had a DPC doc because I just felt like I could never get in to see the doctor now. Yeah. I'm a fairly healthy person, so it's not really a big deal. I shouldn't say I don't really. I really don't take any medication. I probably should take like vitamins, and I just don't do that very well. Doctor, heal thyself, right? So I'm really, I'm like I don't really need to have someone like that. But having one certainly was nice, and it was relatively inexpensive, especially for the value I got out of it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the price that brought me into see it. Now, I mean, it could have been prohibitively expensive if I'm like, well, I'm not going to pay $500 a month for someone I'm never going to see, and there's no value in there. It's the fact that you're going to get this high quality care, and then by the way, labs are cheaper and all this stuff, and it's going to ultimately lower healthcare costs and all these other benefits that come with it. But that's not sort of what all those things draw you in. It's the price at the end that's the one that says, oh yeah, this is good. This is something worth doing. But that's not saying, oh, it's only $100 a month for all this stuff. And you're like, yeah, but I kind of get this stuff anyway, or does it really make a difference? And I think you can have transparency of prices, or like
I am transparent. I actually took my price off my website. Actually,
I was just looking and I can't find it anymore.
We took it off. Because we took it off, and that's when we started to get the conversations again.
That's fascinating.
More phone calls. We started getting more emails, And then we'd bring them in, or we'd talk to them on the phone, and then we'd talk about the price. But first, after saying what we offered, right? And then we talk about the price. And for 5 and up, it's $100 a month. Do you know how complicated $100 a month is for people who aren't prepared to do math? Well, I mean, look at people are like, wait, I'm so confused. I was like, it's $100 a month. Wait, hold on. My copay is $50 every time I go see the doctor. For $100 a month.
Yeah, right.
I was like, how much do you spend on your health? How much do you spend out of pocket on your doctor? But I found is that actually didn't quite. It got too confusing, even though it's so simple. It actually got too confusing because actually, I think what it is one of my friends told me, he's an economist, said it's kind of for the past 30, 40 years, and the whole health insurance industry it has applied behavioral economics. It's kind of made us feel that we need insurance for everything. Actually, it's not just health insurance, it's just the insurance industry. I mean, just go to Best Buy. Would you like to spend 40% more for your toaster to insure your toaster? It's like, no, if it breaks in 2 years, I'm going to buy a new damn toaster.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But that's the thing. And now we've gotten to this point where it's now become acceptable for us to buy insurance to pay for what insurance doesn't pay for. Aflac.
Right.
Aflac. Great commercials. But that's insurance to pay for what insurance doesn't pay for. Whoa. But that darn goose is way more accepted than I am.
Yeah, right.
You know,
it's part of the vocabulary, right? I mean, that's sort of like we're talking about the language. It's terminology that people are used to.
What? Because it's behavioral economics. This was done over decades, and now here we are.
Well, you're unraveling it all right, one person at a time, aren't you?
I am, because every patient's a billboard. And every patient of mine, every family of mine is basically is talking about this model. I mean, I really want this to grow. And it's not really what I want is I want more doctors. I want more doctors to kind of hop in. I was a teaching attending years ago, and I still every once in a while I'll get an email from an old resident of mine or an intern, and they're burning out. I really want more doctors to start to really stop and think about what's happening, what's going on. And if more doctors, say if somebody opens up a DPC pediatric practice across the street, cool, I won.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're
all breaking away. We're all starting to provide better care, and we're finding there is a way. I mean, I don't know if this is the answer for the whole country. I don't know, but I know for my community right here, I know it's something I can do, but only for a small, limited number of people. I mean, there's only so much of me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure at some point people thought there was no way to get to Europe unless you took a boat. True. And then a couple people took a plane, and then realized, oh, you can get there way faster. And it's actually, and then at some point it became, less expensive, and it made sense. And then no one would cross the ocean by boat. Yeah. But for a long time, that was the only way to get across, and you probably never imagined there's any other way to do it. And your mindset was just such that, you want to get across country, you have to take a train. And then at some point you just drove or you took a car. Yeah. I mean, things have to change. But I think, what's interesting is as these adoptions, these new technologies or practices or innovations, it can actually be very quick at some point. You may not, you will know you've been toiling at it for maybe a couple of years. Other people have been doing it for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so it will, to the media and to everyone else, it'll seem like an amazing thing that just suddenly happened. But it's, it took those early adopters a number of, maybe a decade or two to get established and to sort of figure out the process. Right. Yeah. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, of course, how else would you do this? Right. But, so I get the one question I was also thinking about earlier too. Okay, a doc, I'm a pediatrics, I'm getting burnout, I want to go and do this. But my huge fears, I'm the only one there. I'm taking call 24/7. I've got, let's say, 350, 400 patients. I'm not sure how many you have. Am I ever going to sleep?
Oh, yeah. I know I sleep very well.
So how is that possible? Because, I watch my wife when she's on call, and she's on call for the entire clinic, and now they have, thousands of patients. Oh, yeah. And so there's, and it gets nurses take the calls and stuff. And maybe it's just because of the large patient volume, or do you think it's different because they are more likely to contact you during the day and they don't feel like they have to contact you at, when it just suddenly crisis hits at midnight, they got a call?
Well, yeah. Well, so when I worked for my last practice, I think we had like over 10,000 patients.
Sure.
And those calls sucked. Those were the worst.
You don't know the patients, right? Yeah,
I don't know the patients. I've seen 35 plus patients a day. And a lot of those calls were from patients who were actually seen earlier that day. And it was sad because it was like, oh, which doctor did you see? And they're like, oh, that Indian doctor. I was like, oh, you saw me? I couldn't even remember that I saw that patient. I'm the only Indian doctor there. Oh, that's terrible. Those calls were terrible. And there was 5 other doctors. So that's the traditional model, which is sad because that's now the traditional model. Yeah. Versus me now. I just saw, I think 4 patients today. And cold and flu season started. I've got a cold, not the flu. But what I get this question asked a lot, especially if I get this from potential people who want to join my practice, I say, if that's their first question, I'm like, you're not ready for this, go home.
Yeah, right.
But what it is when you're spending an hour of your time, 2 hours, getting to know this family, getting to know your patient, spending time with them in their home or having fun with them at the office, you become family. And so I'm not going to call my mom at 2 a.m. when I know she's sleeping.
Right.
She's family. I'm sure my mom wouldn't mind. Well, no, she would. But then she'd be like, oh, I'm hearing from you. But that's the thing. All my patients, they don't call. And actually, sometimes I'm kind of like, hey, you really should have called me on that. Right. But we didn't want to disturb you.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they know I have 2 young kids. They know that they can call me at 6 a.m. They wait till like 6. It's always funny. They wait till 6 a.m. That's when my little toddlers like woken me up. But I've been called in this past year 3 times.
3 times?
3 times. And,
in 11 months.
And they were legit. I mean, these kids had bad croup. So
yeah, right. I was going to guess it's probably croup, right?
Oh, it was croup. And it was of course like midnight or 2 a.m. And I come over there, I'm walking them outside and I'm giving them a shot of Decadron. And I just saved that family 8 hours in the ER.
Oh, sure.
And $1,500 copay or something. But I came to them. And so that's the difference. But yeah, it's a true emergency. I want to be called. It's my patient. But no, I sleep very well. I just can't enjoy like NFL Sunday as much, at the bar.
Right.
I have some families it's funny. I have some families who are awesome. I know I got to avoid certain bars on Sunday because they're going to be like, yo, Doc, come in. And like, come on, have a beer. I'm like, I can only have one. That's it. And like, who's gonna rat you out? And I'm like, well, I guess, you are the families, but I'm like, that's it, only one. But I've lost some weight because of that.
An added benefit, it's actually a great weight loss program. Who knew? Yeah. All the things that DPC can do for you. And then when we go on
vacation, I'm a cheap date. Like, it doesn't take me much to. It's just one drink and I'm done for the day.
Well, that's the other question too that I get is what do you do for vacations? Do you have now you have a partner, so I assume you guys can sort of cover for each other, sort of.
Yeah. So
what did you do before you had a partner though?
Actually, I'm still the first call. So if I go to St. Martin or in the Caribbean, only like 2 flights from here. There's Wi-Fi all over this planet. So,
yeah, that's true.
So my patients text me, they call me with FaceTime, and a lot of times, I might be able to kind of just help them out that way. But there's of course that one time where the kid, it's like, oh no, we're worried he has strep. Well, Dr. Solomon's at the office. Why don't you go see Dr. Solomon? And then Dr. Solomon's like, yep, strep, and she just texts me. Yep, he's strep positive. Okay, cool. I'll just send him the script from like the beach.
Yeah.
But But you know what? There's another DPC pediatrician that just opened in Greenwich. So I covered for her when she was away on for a weekend. And then in return, she'll cover for me. But that's the nice thing about if more and more pediatricians and family practitioners, if they start to join this model, it's great. We're all one big happy family. I mean, a little stressed out in the beginning, but we're eventually happy. We're all here supporting each other. But technology is a good thing. And that's one big reason. It's my iPhone, right? It's
right.
That I just being able to use the phone, text me, call me. That is what separates me from every other practice. They're just not using it. I mean, a lot of these insurance companies and hospital groups are saying, "Oh, we have telehealth services." Yeah, but it's not with your doctor; it's with some random doctor. That doesn't
right. Right. Well, I think it's great. You can use technology. You can leverage it to help your practice and to provide better service and better care for people, which is not what technology is being leveraged for in most of medicine right now. I mean, there's certainly technology that's been used for great things, and I see in the OR all the time, new advances and new instruments, things like that. But when it comes to record keeping, when it comes to communication stuff, it's not leveraged in any way that's helpful to anybody except the people who are sending the bills to the insurance companies or Medicare, Medicaid. They're just, this stuff is just being used not to help the care of medicine, care of patients.
No, absolutely. Here, let me ask you this. Have you noticed? I want to ask you if you've noticed this. I grew up in the Silicon Valley in California, so technology has always been kind of a big part of my life, and just keeping an eye on, just always fascinated by it and seeing where technology has taken things. Technology in every other industry, technology has resulted in lowering of prices.
Oh yeah.
Look at food technology. Food technology has made food so cheap that now obesity over the planet is now becoming a problem.
Right.
I mean, you look at even fracking, natural gas. I mean, look at how low gas prices are. Mm-hmm. Everything. And just look at these computers. I got a Chromebook for $350. I just, 20 years ago, this thing would have cost me like $2,000. But of course, every new technology that comes out in medicine, it only further increases costs.
Yeah. No, there's no question. I see like for a great example is when we have robotic surgery, we have the Da Vinci robotic system that is basically performing laparoscopic surgery. Can it do things that the regular laparoscopes can't? Yes, it can do, can get you in nooks and crevices that you couldn't ordinarily get to easily. It certainly lengthens the time for surgery. But I'm seeing people who are doing a relatively routine surgeries like a gallbladder or hernias using the robot, and it doesn't provide any extra value, but there's the compensation to the facility is like $5,000 more.
The different CPT code.
Right. Well, and your facility fee is just so much higher, and so and you want to utilize it because these are $1 million machines, right? And for the surgeons, I imagine they're kind of fun, and patients like, oh, a robot, well, that must be way better. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you see all this technology. You see the cost of a television. I mean, we get 60-inch televisions with high definition, crystal clear. You can see like the pores on people's noses and stuff when they're getting ready to pitch, and the price is probably like 1/100th of what it would have been. Even in 1980, right? I mean, getting a TV a projection. Remember, they're like thousands of dollars, and that was $1980. Yeah. Like, I don't even know what that'd be right now, like $50,000 or something, and we're paying like $600. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're right, absolutely. The incentives are all off in medicine and healthcare, and I really believe that DPC is not, like you said, it's not the answer for everything. It's not going to fix the healthcare system. However, I think small ideas, innovative ideas at the margins are what's going to transform healthcare. And if people just let the market kind of work itself out, and as people find better ways to do things and to leverage technology. And the problem is we just keep trying to, there's this huge push to consolidate stuff from the people who are the big players. Mm-hmm. They, change the rules, the laws, and all the sort of the government payers and everything. They're pushing things in ways that are not helpful to anybody. Yeah. Except the big players. And it's too bad because the ability there are people who are, even despite all the things that odds against them, are still managing to do really kind of cool things. I mean, like what you're doing is really neat. And like my doctor, and they're the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. There are all kinds of people doing things.
Yeah.
But we just have to get out of the way and let them do these things and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the breaking point is here. And I called this about 10 years ago. I knew this was going to happen where the cost of insurance is going to outweigh the actual cost of the care. I think we're here. We've already reached.
Yeah, we've well past that.
I just had a conversation with the new potential family, and they're like, "We're so tired of paying $40 for a strep test." I was like, "Oh, that thing that cost me $2."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't even nickel and dime that. That's just part of my membership. It's $2. Like, really? I say, yeah, it's $2. They get mad.
Yeah.
Amoxicillin costs $10. Like, really? It's a $1.80.
Oh yeah. Well, do you have dispensing rules? Are you allowed to dispense? Yeah. So you're one of the 45 states that does. I talked to a doc a little while ago, and she of course can't do that, and she's fighting for that in Texas.
Yeah.
Well,
we can't sell.
So if someone, you can't sell it. So if someone wants a prescription of like lisinopril, you can't say, well, that'll be 50 cents or something. So you're not able to dispense medications and sell them.
I can't sell it.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're one of the 5 states that can't. So you're also, because in Michigan we can. So in Michigan, my doc charges 10% above wholesale, which I think is kind of standard, if there's any sort of standard measure for DPC docs. Covers your cost of your bottles and label makers and stuff.
If I have if I have a kid that has an ear infection or strep or sinus, and it's late in the day, like, here you go.
you just give it to him. Yeah,
well,
it makes sense, right?
And the parents are like, oh, how much do we owe you? I'm like, I can't sell it to you, but trust me, it doesn't cost as much as you think it is. Actually, I'm very transparent about it. I was like, yeah, I got that. I got a great GPO. That cost me $1.80. Like, really? Yeah. But now the thing is, though, because I am a member of my Chamber of Commerce and I believe in small businesses, I will not give full courses, because actually one of the mom and pop pharmacies said, hey, it'd be great if you just do a starter dose, but please send a prescription over to us and we will. I was like, you know what, that's fine. And they said, well, and small mom and pop pharmacies are always good about kind of double checking what's the cash price versus going through the insurance. They send it over to a big box and send some eardrops over to the big box, and it's $180. I call up I talked to the pharmacist at that big box and said, how much is it if you don't run it through the insurance? Oh, it's $35. Hey, come on, man.
Yeah. And they can compound for you and do the things that you can't get the bigger
and
places
so
to, which is nice.
But since I've been open, when I opened a year ago, there was 3 independent mom and pop pharmacies here, and now we're down to 1. So 2 of them shut down, and it's because they begin squeezed out. And so I'm gonna kind of support that one last remaining mom and pop independent pharmacy, just as I do with any of the businesses around here. A lot of the members of my Chamber of Commerce, they'll give my patients like 10% discount or 20% discount with service.
Cool.
And I'll do the same for them if they need me. And it's really, like I said, I don't know if DPC is the answer for the whole country. All I know is that at least I know I can help my community here. And so part of that community, it's a small business community. Oh, another thing during this time was, since we last spoke, was I'm a founding member of the Independent Doctors of Westchester, New York. We're growing, and we meet every month, and we're just basically, our whole goal is to try to keep every physician in our county independent, because a lot of these docs, they don't want to get gobbled up. They don't want to lose their autonomy by joining a hospital. And so it's a lot of times we're in everybody's Rolodex now. But I'm aging myself on that Rolodex. But I got a referral. Sure. It's like, hey, I'm going to refer going to refer you over to my dermatology friend. And guess what? She's not part of a hospital group. So she's not actually going to charge you a hospital bill. And that's another difference that a lot of people don't realize. Here in New York, we've got this consolidation. All the physicians are joining hospital groups. But these are hospital bills now. That's why they're reimbursed 3-5 times more. And now that's hitting the patient's wallets hard now because they're high deductibles.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's the game changer, right? When it comes to when you're now what 10% of the cost of because people are going to pay the full price of the deductible. So
yeah,
if you're providing that value, people are they're going to seek you out because the hassle factor of trying to get prices and all the stuff that people never had to worry about before. Yeah. Well, now it's worth worrying about, right? And so they're going to absolutely make that change. Yeah. Well, it's been a great catching up with you. I'm so glad that things are going so well and that you've kind of figured out the marketing thing. And it'd be interesting. I have a number of DPC docs who listen to the show and who've been on the show. And it'd be interesting to get their thoughts on this as well, because I do think, and I've never thought about it before. I've always thought, oh, it's a great deal. This is why you want to do DPC. But that's not really how you make the sales. No one comes to your house and says, hey, I got something for $100 you'll love. I got this thing that's going to clean your house. It's going to do all this stuff. And they're like, oh, and it's only $100. Oh, really? And that's always how.
It's like if you come up to somebody and say, I'm going to save you a ton of money on your car insurance. It's like, it works for Geico. But
so do you finish your sales pitch when, well, no, I shouldn't sales pitch, but it sort of is like when a patient calls you and say, well, I usually, most people think this would cost about $400 a month. My charge is I only charge $100 because I, save money other ways. Is that how you close it, or do you just kind of hit it with the price at the end?
You know what? That's okay. I'm glad you asked that actually. So I do say I'm only $100 a month, and for some people that is expensive.
Yeah. Sure.
But and for a lot of people, they say you're only charging $100 a month. They do understand, because after I've explained everything I do, they kind of see that. What I explained to them is the reason why I'm charging $100 a month. I could charge more. I know what I can charge, and I know what other doctors are commanding. But I'm not going to charge that, because what it is I have skin in the game here. I charge them, it's low. Just like you have skin in the game. You're going to pay me every month. But at the same time, I have skin in the game because by not charging as much, I am dependent on you. I want to know if I charge you any more, there's a good chance I would lose you. But by charging less, it's telling you that keeping you healthy is my number one priority. Because if all I do is like, if I run a transactional medicine model, like what kind of, let's face it, the rest of healthcare is, you only get paid if you bill an office. Yeah. So there's a bigger incentive to call them in when they're sick. So I'm telling them, by only $100 a month, I'm not making money off you being sick. I'm saving money to keep you healthy. That's where my skin in the game is. My commitment to you, just like you have a commitment to me. And so that, I guess, might be the closing argument for my sales pitch, I guess. But it kind of makes it click over there for a lot of people.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. And at some point we'll have to cross paths somewhere.
Yeah, I've got to come out here for ramen. You kind of just ramen last time.
Oh, right. Well, I've only been through New York briefly as I was driving past. We were doing a college tour with my daughter for spring break. So someday I'll have to actually visit New York. I'm your classic Midwestern. I'm afraid of the big cities. So, but anyway, if you want to find out more about Dr. Gupta, you can go to rivertownspeds.com. The links for that and the show, his previous appearance on episode 31, where he got the big giant bump and then got national notoriety and his practice took off, will be available there, as well as I think you also briefly mentioned the DPC Frontier Mapper. So if those who are interested in finding direct primary care practices, I think it's the most comprehensive mapping program that exists that I'm aware of, that actually shows all kinds of practices and what someone needs to do. And actually, if someone at DPC Frontier is listening, and I don't know who runs that, but what would be really fascinating is if they could show the map monthly and how it has changed from month to month, because I looked at it, and I swear 2 months later, I looked at it again, and there were 3 more practices in the state of Michigan that weren't there. And so the growth is, it's not exponential, but it's certainly accelerating. And I think it'd be very interesting to someone just kind of watch all the dots, right, show up and as it becomes more prevalent. And I think maybe that's my next goal is I'll try and contact them and tell them to do that.
Yeah,
Easy for me to ask, right?
You know what? I think it's Bill Eskew who runs DPC Frontier.
Yeah, well, I'll try and figure it out, and
I think
maybe that'll be my
great
goal.
Guest for Paradox.
I think so. Hey, thanks so much, and have a great evening.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to The Paradox. If you like what the doc is doing, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And share the show with your friends. Become a supporting listener to get access to special bonuses at patreon.com/theparadox. Show notes can be found at theparadox.com.